Okay, we're recording now, guys.
Okay.
Great.
I'm just flagging up, Bev, that I have to leave in about 25 minutes because I'm at a friend's house and they're making supper. But I wanted to come for a bit.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for coming for a bit. You know, I think so. Two of you have done have presented, so I'm wondering if you waited a few minutes before you started. See, here's someone else. Hi, Katie. Welcome.
Hi, Katie.
Maybe we can just chat a little bit and see if some other people join us, and then we can start. So some of you I have met and worked with, and some of you are new, so welcome the old and the new.
Thank you.
Anybody want to check in with how they are from wherever they are? Everybody's good. So I'm in California and not on fire at this point.
I'm in Albany, New York, and today is warm day. They said it's going to be 10 degrees lower than yesterday, and 3 days ago was frost already, but now it's nice and warm.
Bizarre, huh? Well, welcome. Yes, it's supposed to be a heat wave here as well. So maybe we can start, well, we'll wait for a few minutes for anybody to talk about what interests them about this particular class. What drew you to this? Welcome, Nigel.
Hello. I can talk. I can say something.
Okay.
I'm really interested in playfulness, and I'm interested in it because it seems to be like you can't really force it into being. So it's something like you have to somehow cultivate it in a sort of sideways way. And I'm interested in it and how you might create the conditions or cultivate it in a way that doesn't that allows it to kind of emerge.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. For me, when I consider myself quite playful, and when I was trying to just sit down and think about what I wanted to share, the playfulness was the hardest quality for me to, I don't know if it's call upon, put my finger on. I don't even know how I would exactly describe that. It was interesting. So some of what I'm going to do and some of what I came up with was really going into remembering times I was playful, and the giggle of that, which I will talk about, was part of what started it. It's just almost like finding that giggle or joy or playfulness.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to certainly for doing this session. I think we all know something about tenderness and playfulness and fierceness, but I don't know that we have the luxury or spend the time to really develop it, cultivate it, and so I thought that and explore it. So I thought that would be fun. So I think I will start in that way. Does anybody else want to share before I so-called start, even though we've already started?
Sure, I'd say something. I think that, I'm tender and fierce and playful, but it's kind of in the medium range. It's never really engages me. So I don't fully participate. When I'm playful, I'm not totally playful. When I'm fierce, I'm not really fierce, and so on. So that's why I'm saying, how can I intensify this kind of the things instead of being some kind of at the low middle range. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes, I'd like everyone.
No.
Yes.
Please carry on. I interrupted.
Oh, no, I think we just spoke at the same time, actually. But what I liked about the title too, or the whole idea, was it suggested a certain level of flexibility too. Because these are very different states, but I liked the idea of like, oh, we could move from one to the other. We could move in and out of these places, and that interested me.
Love that. Yeah, and it is important. I mean, we're in the course that we're doing, we're talking about neuromuscular lock, and in lots of ways, we get stuck in playfulness, or stuck in fierceness, or stuck in tenderness. It's not flexible. It's not fluid. So very important. And
I think for me, the interesting thing is that they are part of who we are. They're very much our map of the world, and how our ancestors have been, and how our parents have been, and what we've learned about using each of them to achieve what we most want in any given moment. So I see it isn't about one, it's about all three, and what we need to be doing with ourselves to achieve what we most want. It's how we are the best of ourselves in any given moment. It's interesting for me, professionally, I work with teachers a lot, and I find the majority of teachers, 7 out of 10, find it very hard to engage with fierceness. Although in many respects, they are fierce every day. But it's something around, often I've found in the past, when I talk of fierceness, they receive it as aggression and don't want to, and often say, I can't be fierce, I can't be aggressive, I don't want to be that way. So it's very interesting in terms of what needs to be understood and what needs to be healed sometimes in order for us to be the best versions of ourselves.
Right. So when I was just coming up with this, I've never done a specific group on these 3 qualities. So when I was coming up with it, I really realized a lot of it was about understanding it deeply, experiencing all of these in a deep embodied state, as opposed to a reactive locked state, because they're very different when it's in a full embodied open state, any of them. So, and I think that when we think about them often, or talk about them in general society, we think about the locked forms of tenderness, of fierceness, and of playfulness. So that's a really important component of this, and the permission to feel all of those 3 and to combine them is a whole other level. So thank you, Nigel. That's important. It's great. It's so great to have a group this size where you can begin, and it's how I begin a lot of my groups, to find out what your interest is and then to speak from that, as opposed to some pre-formed idea of what we might do today. So thank you so much. Anyone else want to bring their desires or their curiosity to the table?
I think for me, so I've noticed, I haven't been doing Steve's work for too long, but like the last few years, kind of integrating, especially those 3 energies, and so as a therapist, just noticing that the best sessions I have, there's a little component of those 3 things, and sometimes maybe leaning more towards tenderness, or more toward fierceness, or more toward playfulness. So I found them really those super useful. And I think what I've noticed a little bit with my client work is sort of sometimes I've surprised myself a little bit in how I meet them when they come, you know, from the client into the session. So sometimes, you know, they're kind of really in this sort of fierceness, and I might bring a little bit of that in too, like, and we're kind of like in this similar energy or space. And other times it's more like, no, I'm more taking an opposite, and that kind of happening. And so that's kind of been really curious for me. And I think just like exploring a little deeper, like what might I be doing that seems to be really resonating and working, but I'm not sure what that is, you know, or how to articulate it. And then I do notice this is all happening wonderfully, you know, in some of my therapy sessions, but I get really pulled into like one, you know, so I get really tender or really fierce, and then playful is hard for me too, actually. So that one I do find harder to cultivate. So yeah, I really love Steve's talking about this. So I just wanted to kind of explore it more.
I love it. And you know, all this work is based on people, you know, the beginning of N.L.P, or the N.L.P research team that Stephen was a part of, was, you know, exploring how Virginia Satir, how Erickson, how Fritz Perls would do their work and not necessarily be aware of how they were doing or what they were bringing into the work that worked. So yeah, this is a great place to do that.
As you were speaking, oh,
go ahead.
As you were speaking, Petra, I was just thinking to myself, I thought, some of these qualities are really easy for me to do relationally. So if I'm with somebody, it can be much easier to feel them. And if I'm on my own, it can be really difficult to connect with them. So I sort of thinking, oh, tenderness for me, well, actually that goes both ways, but playfulness is really easy for me relationally, but on my own, more difficult. And fierceness is much more easy relationally to some extent, but not so easy on my own, because there's this whole like relationship with myself as well as relationship out there. And it's interesting to see, just to kind of clock that as you were speaking. I just clocked it.
That's great. Yeah, because there's some situations where we just access things more easily. So that's a wonderful distinction. Because when I was developing this, I was looking at how we can offer that to clients, but also how do we offer that to ourselves?
Yeah.
And then how do we go in and out of that in our personal relationships as well? So yeah, it's a great,
it's also, yeah, how to articulate the things, because fierceness, when I'm by myself, I can swear, and I do, and so much so. I'm very inhibited when I'm with somebody else, so I'm kind of become speechless in a sense. So it's kind of funny.
Could you say that again? Because you kind of the sound went in and out, and I really want to hear what you're saying. What I heard, my interpretation is, so please tell me if I heard this correctly, that when you're fierce on your own, you swear a lot, and when you're with people, you don't swear, and so it takes away some of the expression of your fierceness.
I become silent and inexpressive when I want to be fierce. So then I can leave them, go home, and start to swear. So,
all right.
I think that's a kind of a little different than Natasha, but that's what reminded me when she was talking about it. Oh, right, yeah.
It's wonderful. So the specific ways we have to express them, and when you don't have them, I remember my good friend John went to Rio. It was his first time out of the country, and you know, everyone was speaking Portuguese, and he went to a bar. He went to a nightclub, and he had no skill set. He had no. When you just talked, Zarko, I saw a picture of a slide, like that the swear words were the slide in which you could you know, move with your fierceness. And my friend wrote me saying, like, I can't use my humor. I can't use, like, he had no vehicle in which he could share any of who he was, including his tenderness, fierceness, and playfulness. So it's funny. There's, you know, so if you have, how do you do that without a shared language? So are we going to hear some swearing, Zarko, in this meeting?
No, but also in our culture, you know, I'm not supposed to cry. I just recently started to cry in public. Otherwise, I didn't only swear at home, but I cried by myself. So both of those.
Yeah. That touches my heart. So I really want to welcome that, Zarko. So your tears and some of your swearing, we're welcome. True. Yeah. You know, the whole reason I started, you know, I was going to present some things. I had no idea what I would present, and what happened was in our group, I think I asked her permission, but I'm a little dodgy about how she answered. I'm just not remembering, so I won't say who it is. But in my small group that I was doing, after Stephen had worked, I think it was with Nick. Maybe you can help me with that. And Nick said something, and Stephen was working with him, and Stephen said something like bullshit or I think that's bullshit.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And but the thing that this woman in my group came to when we were you know, just discussing the day afterwards, was that she just noticed the heartfulness that Stephen had. And when she talked, and she's a very heartful person, and she's a very skilled coach herself. And I just said, yes, you know, that is so important in this work, because you can say welcome, you can say that can make sense, you can do the steps. But if you don't have the developed heartfulness, the receiving, the you know, it's funny that this picture came up also when I was thinking about this subject, was that in this work, my sense is that you are seeing a young, let's not even say young, you're seeing a part of someone in their deepest innocence, and you're welcoming them into the world. And again, the picture that I had was of being there to catch a baby when the baby is born. And I just thought it was an interesting image, because I working with this work, as I was there when Zoe was born with Stephen. But I really had that sense of, I didn't know if that's where that metaphor came from, you know, when I was thinking about this. But there's a beauty and a depth in it. And there was a time, even though Stephen and I are friends, I would consider us friends, and there's a lot of tenderness between us. There was a time I was in front of a group. He was working with me in trance camp. And I don't even remember what the part was that emerged, but it was a very tender part of me. And Stephen looked at me and was so loving. I'm looking down at my phone because I realize I need to turn off the ringer. He was so loving towards that part of me that every cell in my body relaxed in a new way. That, and you know, I grew up with a very loving mother who thought I was like the most wonderful thing on the planet. but there's the hidden parts. There's the parts of us that just aren't accepted or given the light of day or given the holding. And so the tenderness was the first part of what inspired me to do this particular group. And then I decided if I'm going to do tenderness, I will do it in the balance of fierceness and playfulness, because if you just are a one-trick pony, life doesn't work so well for you. So we need all three, and we need to share that with the people that we work with, because it really gives us important tools in the toolbox and important movement to go between all of those three forces, qualities. I didn't even know what I wanted to call them, and I didn't remember what Stephen calls them, but qualities, or you know, they could be archetypes. So, but so important, such an important part of developing this for being able to love yourself as a way of, you know, that's kind of how I feel like starting in the world, is helping people to love themselves more, so we could really love each other more, so we could really, you know, make a dent on this planet in a direction that it sorely needs. So that was the start for me of doing this workshop today. And did anybody else want to talk about what brought them here before I continue?
I would like to share. First of all, I have like two lines, or two at minimum two interests here. First of all, I just met Beverlee on the first day when we met with the group leaders, and I met with Beverlee, and also Celine was there, and Kasha. And Beverlee is such an interesting trainer and communicator. So you already started to feel her magic. And when we interacted, we just explored Zoom together, how to organize breakout rooms and everything, Telegram. And it was really interesting for me. I sit with them together, and we spent, I guess, about 2 hours, right? Or maybe, but the time was just gone very fast, because it was so interesting, all her comments. And also Celine was there, and they like just two smart and wise women sitting together exploring Zoom. It's like was one of the most interesting Zoom tutorial. And so we get acquainted a little bit, and then when I started to see the group leaders list, her group was completely full, and at the first several seconds, people just signed up to her. So, and also we have a chance to speak a little bit on our group leader meetings, and I know you're studying and co-working for a lot of years with Steven together. So you're really interesting for me as a specialist, as a personal too. And this topic you chose, it's really close also for me, for my work. I think Steven has this point that the effective communicator should have all those three states or three energies time to time. And many times when he works with clients on the stage, he told us, I'm kind of making assignment how many of playfulness, of tenderness, of fierceness in this person. And I'm kind of adding in order to balance the state. And I'm really interested about actually behavioral expressions in real life of the states, and also, as Natasha mentioned, about our own inner state when we are going during the day, how much playfulness we have, fierceness, and you know, tenderness to ourselves in our own inner state. It's also really interesting. So I'm happy to be here.
Great, welcome. Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that you found things you wanted to connect with me at that time, because in the beginning, learning Zoom and Telegram and everything was like, it was like a easy slide to crash stage. You didn't meet me at my best either, so that's really great. So thank you for seeing through to, you know, more of who I am. I appreciate that. And that's another point of that's another point of this group is how can we develop seeing more through to who people are, because people do present themselves in that lockdown states, and it's often not pretty, you know, how people are presenting themselves. But you know, our work is really to see, and that's to me part of the fierceness actually, is, you know, being able to cut through to all the stuff that we do as people to protect ourselves or keep our sanity or try to please, or all the things that we work so hard to do. How do we as humans and practitioners cut down to who we are, cut through what we present to ourselves, and to see our beauty and our light, and to do that for others? You know, it's such a gift. It is that thing that Stephen talks about the tribe in Africa. I love this story that when a child is born, they see through to the spirit of the child, and they sing the song of what that child is meant to be and to bring, you know, onto the earth. And, you know, I think that's a good way to look at this work, and also our work and participation with ourselves. You know, a friend of mine, I don't have a good recording of it, but I will share the recording that I do have. He wrote years ago a song called Hear Your Song. If you could only hear your song, if you could just hear your song. And so, so that's to me part of tenderness, fierceness, and playfulness, is how do we welcome who a person is with their frailties. In the shaman studies I do, there is a I've been going on vision quests every year for about the past 15 or 16 years, and there's ceremonies that you participate in. I'm by myself, so I'm participating by myself. And one of the prayers is to the north, to forgive me for my human frailties and to bless me for the worthiness of my spirit. So that to me also is part of this work, is And that takes tenderness, fierceness, and playfulness as well, to forgive yourself and to forgive others for their frailties, because we certainly have them, and to bless us for the worthiness of our gift, our light, our spirit. And so yeah, thank you. Thanks. Anyone else want to share? It's a fun, for me, this is a, you know, instead of preparing, this is what this is, this is what this is a much more fun way of sharing with you. Anybody else want to share what brought you here?
For me, I have the feeling that these three are so fun and tempting when you engage with them, that there's a bit of a danger of just running with one and not staying connected to all three of them. And so, yeah, I want to learn more about dancing with them and switching. And, yeah.
Great. So let's explore them. Let's explore all three of them for all of us. So I will present something that I think, for example, let's just start with tenderness. And talk about it. So what I'd like to do is talk about each quality, and then do a group, just trance, a group exploration where we just go in and we explore what each one is for us. And Natasha, I know you're going to have to leave, and so hopefully you will get the recording of this and be able to do that on your own. But I think that the more, you know, the more you give word to it, the more you give shape to it, the more you give conversation to it, it helps develop what that is for all of us inside. And so I want to give some space, building the field to cultivate. I want to even use the word cultivate and culture. I want to talk about that a little bit. I had a boyfriend years ago, and he said to me that he did something every day to cherish me, that was what his intention was. Every day I'm going to do something that cherishes you. And then he said, which sounded really beautiful and giving and wonderful, and it was. And then he said, I don't do it for you. I do it for, which is funny, but it was very important and very wise, I thought. He said, I do it for me so that I can culture and cultivate cherishing inside of me. So that's another thing I'd like to see if we can come up with ideas, come up with inspiration to every day figure out ways to cultivate these different qualities, these different songs inside of ourselves. So tenderness. So I'll start a little bit. I wrote a whole bunch of things, and I'm not even going to reference what I wrote, and we'll see what comes out. But I do remember that time when, again, when Stephen was working with me, and this forgotten, hidden, imprisoned, you know, unaccepted, libeled, you know, like just lied about, hidden, dismissed, part of me was seen. There was such a freedom, a spaciousness, an allowing, an unfolding, a relief a tears, Zarko, of I've been waiting for this for my whole life. So isn't that so amazing? So that tenderness of being welcomed, of being seen and then welcomed. The seen part for me is I'm talking about tenderness, is the fierceness. So when I thought about tenderness, I first thought about tenderness. So it's that, you know, it just came to me what Stephen says, you know, come to Papa, come, like welcome, that tenderness. I remember being out for dinner with a friend of mine, and he had his son with us, and his son was like kicking and screaming and tantruming and doing all of that, and he took his son like sideways, so his head was this way and his feet were that way, still kicking, and he lovingly but firmly held his son, and he looked at me and his heart opened, and he said, he's tired. And I was so touched by that I was like, I want someone to do that for me. I want somebody, when I'm kicking and screaming and tantruming or being silly or being scared or being angry or whatever, you know, not being 100% with myself. Is there somebody that could just take me and hold me and say, you know, she's not feeling herself right now? So that to me is one of the, just a story about tenderness that I value. And I'm wondering, does anybody else have something about tenderness? Some experience you've had, something that you've had inside you that you experience, that you value, that you'd like to share? I want to make sure again that is your name pronounced Achim?
Yeah.
Achim. Okay. Great.
The story of your friend reminded me, a friend of mine, she has this thing where she's using her thumb as an iron for my forehead. So when I get engaged in a story and I'm constricted and and everything is so bad, you can see it here. And she is so perfect with getting me out of this state by let me come with my little iron and puts it on my forehead and irons that out and gets me out of the state I'm in. And it's so absolutely disarming the way she does it. It is completely everything that before made me go like this goes away, and by now she just needs to raise her thumb and I know, oh, I'm safe, and this is held and it's met with this beautiful tenderness of hers. Yeah.
Love that. I love that. I love that you're calling. I know that experience. I love it too, but the using the word iron for that, I love that word iron. That's so great. Thanks, awesome, appreciate it. Anybody else? So is there anyone else would like to share? And I don't know if I left enough time for someone to actually answer. Okay, so so tenderness really allows us to really open be new and be fresh and take away the walls of separation. And it allows us to hold ourselves, to hold the moment, to hold another person. It allows us to breathe. It allows us to really be with another person, to really connect, or ourselves, or whatever is going on, or a tree, or something in a book, or a sound, piece of music, a bird singing. We do a lot too. We you know, I think we've all had experiences that have helped us want to close our heart, numb our heart, shield our heart. You know, such a weird thing that I'm thinking of, but I'm going to share it, that, you know, Trump's whole thing about building a wall probably started when in his childhood, when he had to build the wall of his heart. And it's a hard life to live that doesn't bring a lot of creativity and joy. So I think it's and we have this idea often that if our heart is open, it leaves us vulnerable. But people who really live in that open, heartful place can begin to find that it's such a powerful position. And I'm hoping in the trance work, I'm hoping in our lives that we begin to experiment, put our toe in the water of experimenting, of how safe we can actually be. The bigger we expand our heart, the more power we have. And of course, as we do that, we want to bring in the fierceness, the ability to have a warrior protection, to, you know, do all those things as well. But I just invite us to be so curious about what kind of power we can have in the opening of our hearts. Anybody have anything they'd like to share or add about that? Nigel.
As you were talking there, Beverlee, I was just taken with the idea of intention, and a simple gesture can welcome and bring on an opening and create an opening. I'm just was thinking about, for example, the gesture of holding hands, and not necessarily when it's done automatically, but in that moment, something new emerges from. It builds the bridge. It opens the doorway, mm-hmm. and allows for so much more. And it's an act of tenderness, mm-hmm. and it doesn't have to be that, but it could be a word, a gesture, a tone, a look that in that moment is tender, and the intention to be tender, to bring tenderness into the world, can be achieved through very simple things, but the intention is huge.
I love that. It's the idea, for me, what comes to mind is the idea of random acts of kindness. Or, you know, when you were speaking, I was thinking of Oksana putting the heart on her frame, and it really did build a bridge for me. Or saying, I realized, as you were talking, Nigel, I realized that Oksana did in what she just said, she did hold me kind of kicking and screaming, because here I was like in, if not completely in, close to crash state with Zoom, and she's like saw me in that state, and that's like, oh my God, what a gift. And it actually encourages me to be more of me. It's actually it's a bigger invitation than just something in the moment. So I want to thank you, Oksana, because I didn't even, and thank you, Nigel, because I didn't even, I felt it, but I didn't think it through of what the implications it actually had for me personally. So
really is an example sometimes, really not just sometimes, of how words can be hopelessly inadequate. They are important. Yeah, that how words can be hopelessly inadequate. They're important, but what the word you choose to use is from your map and may not be interpreted in the same way that you do. The word fierceness in itself can be interpreted. It's the essence, it's the intention behind it, whether for self or for others. It's just how the action we use, the way we bring it out and use it, that's important.
That's great. And it's like connecting to it. Yeah.
I also think that we are used to expressing our tenderness in some form of touch. Like that feels very familiar and very, that just resonates so much, whether it's, smoothing out the forehead or taking somebody's hand. For me, there's been times, I recently cut my hair. I used to have a lot longer hair, but there's been different times in my life when my hair has been short as an adult. And I've had actually an ex-boyfriend who used to rub my hair. When he'd see me, just come over and rub my hair. And I felt such warmth and affection in those moments, just for me as a person, not, I was thinking sometimes that tenderness and that is more about attraction or maybe sexual in nature, but real tenderness just feels more like it's just for you, your unique self. But I was also just thinking about how challenging it is to express tenderness when we aren't able to touch people in that natural way that we do. I actually meet with clients outside. I broke my rule a couple of times because a person really, really needed a hug, and we, tried our best to just with our masks on. But that natural instinct is sort of thwarted all the time. And then there's this idea of like, well, I still would like to experience it and express it. So if I'm meeting, like we're meeting, it's still a challenge of like, well, how do I get that across? How do I receive it from somebody else?
That's wonderful. And just now as we're talking about tenderness, fierceness, and playfulness, and we're talking about having an interplay. So what a lovely thing to do is to begin to develop what is an interplay between kinesthetic, visual, auditory. You could add, make a dish for someone and add gustatory and what's the other one?
Was it hearing? Was there?
No, smell.
Olfactory.
The word.
Is that olfactory?
Olfactory. Thank you. Oh my God. So yeah. So weaving in. So Oksana sent me a heart on Zoom, and it came into my heart. She said words about meeting me when I was in a stress situation and gave me appreciation, and that went right into my heart. So there are things that I did want to discuss also in this about, for me, when I see a video of an interspecies connection, like a dog and an elephant having an affectionate interchange, my heart opens to the size of the universe. So it is interesting to look at what are things, you know, often it's little kids that I see a little kid and I go like, oh, has everybody seen that video of that Asian little girl telling her parents to just be nice to each other and all she wants is, so Petra has seen it, anyone else? Yeah. Because one of the things I'd like us to do when this workshop is over is to send pictures or thoughts or music or anything on Telegram or email or whatever we do that helps, that invited you into tenderness or fierceness or playfulness or a combination of some of those things. I think would be fun to help each other to access that. So, so thank you, Katie, because it is like, how do we, especially now, this time calls for some creativity and playfulness. And so we need to, and I think it's a call to not just do things the way we've already done things. How else can we show tenderness? That is an amazing question. And how else can we digest and tenderness? You know, when you work with couples, you see that often one couple is giving something. They're usually in a particular way, and it's usually in the way they would like to receive, by the way. And the other, the partner is not receiving it because it's not their form of how they like to get love. So what, you know, if you look at, I taught this before this book came out, but I like the 5 languages of love just because it makes it a little more definitive than how I described it in a much more abstract kind of way. Like, you know, how you give is not necessarily how someone wants to receive. But we need to, so what I tell couples is, first of all, you need to learn how to give in different channels. So the way you like, the way the other person likes, and maybe even new ways that no one has even explored yet. But also we need to learn to digest things in new ways. So somebody gives you gifts and that's not a thing for you. And like there's, you know, I have lots of couples that have the idea of, oh, are you leaving us, Natasha? Okay, lots of love. Lots of love.
Really look forward to the video.
Okay, great.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
You. Thank you.
Thank you.
What was I just saying? So, so we need to be creative and learn to give and receive in many, many channels. That's helpful for us anyways. And it's helpful particularly now. So thanks, Katie, for bringing that up, because there are lots of different ways of sharing tenderness. And I think it's good to expand our toolkit, just our library, however, you know, our resources. You know, I think it's good to do that.
And Beverlee, when you brought up what Oksana did, it did make me realize, oh yes, of course, because Oksana's been my group leader, which has been wonderful. And Oksana, you do have this way of very much communicating on all of these platforms your heartfelt good wishes and support. You have a lovely way of doing that. And I sort of feel like, oh, it's kind of I'm answering my own question, because I feel like I really feel it when you're offering, you know, so many good thoughts and feelings towards me, I really feel that.
Yeah. You know, I really feel that, including Natasha, who just left, from every single person on this screen, actually, which is something that's great, really heartfulness. So I want to embrace that and support that. Is that, look at, you know, and we're on a, you know, a screen that no matter how big your screen is, it's thin and it's small and it's flat, and we're still getting love, which is amazing. So I'm just going to ask you for a second to imagine tenderness mixed with fierceness, and tenderness mixed with playfulness, because it's kind of shifts the kind of tenderness. And we'll talk about that more when we actually do the trance. I just want to go to fierceness right now. So fierceness, oh, well, wait, before I go to fierceness, actually, I'm going to backtrack. There was one story I actually wanted to say about tenderness and heart, which I conflate with heartfulness. There was a time when I lived in an apartment building, and there was a guy from Holland who lived in the building with his wife. He kicked his wife out. I let her stay on my couch, and I told her she could work things out with her husband or not, or she could be on her own. And I was very open in my counseling of her. She decided to leave him, and he decided to blame me. He was an assistant manager, and he had the key to my apartment, and he started to threaten me physically. And he started to yell at everybody who came into my house and whatever. So I was scared. And I ended up leaving and then I found out that he had been hospitalized in Holland for thinking he was Jesus. So I was scared, and I left my apartment for a month, and I stayed in someone's house. Then I went back to my home in Montreal, and I had to at some point come back to San Diego, and I was scared. I was scared to come back. I took a cab from the airport to my apartment, and something really strange happened as I started to walk towards my apartment, being scared to interact with him. And he was there. His wife had left. He was there by himself. I changed the lock, but he was still there. And my heart completely opened to this guy. Like, as I was walking, I hadn't seen him yet. My heart completely opened to him after being scared for my life. I didn't intend it. I didn't ask for that. It was something that happened. And from that moment on, he became my best friend, which I also didn't want. But it was much better than the alternative, you know. So the reason why I'm sharing this story is that when my heart opened, he completely transformed. So that that wasn't something I was trying to do, but I saw it happen, and it was like a miracle. It was a miracle. So I'm just talking about, the reason why I wanted to share that was just talking about the power of heartfulness and tenderness. It's amazing. It's just amazing. So, okay, so now fierceness. And there was fierceness in that, if I could kind of say it. It was heartfulness that was tender and really powerful. The word power, the real meaning of the word power means the ability to act. And I think fierceness has a lot to do with that. It's it's the ability to act. So someone can be fierce. Fierceness is wonderful because it helps us bring ourselves into the world. It helps us like a machete cut through whatever's in front of us to get to a clearing, to get to truth, to get to action, to get to what we desire. So the fiercefulness it's the part of it's the warrior archetype. It's the protector. So it's the you know, when Stephen said bullshit or whatever he said to it was Nick. Was it Nick that he said it? The thing that allowed him to do that to begin with was the fact that he already had the tender rapport with Nick. And with love, I believe, that was my reading of it, Stephen was able to cut through the stuff and say, no, let's go to really what's going on inside. Let's go to truth. And there's an interesting aside in here that in my shaman practice, we have been taught that when you hear, see, feel truth, you feel peaceful. It doesn't have to be good news, but when it's truth, there's a peace that happens in your body. And when you can use that warrior, that fierceness, to cut through to truth, there is a peacefulness and the same kind of relief available as I had when Stephen was loving that part of me inside. Because it's like, oh my God, because in there had to be the fierceness of seeing me, of cutting through all that brush to see me, cutting through all the smoke and mirrors I had developed to put up to hide that part all those years. And the same with Nick. So there's many, but the fierceness also allows a person to say no, like, no, I'm not going to go there. There was a time in the same boyfriend. He was an interesting challenge. Who told me that if we had an open relationship and blah blah blah, that it would be really good, that it would be really good for my ego, that would be really good for opening, really good for strengthening my sense of myself. And I was like, I completely agree with you. That would be an amazing opportunity for me to do all those things. And no. It was an amazing offer, invitation, but it was not, didn't work for me, for what I wanted, right? And it was like that fierceness to be able to say, yes, thank you, no. And that was a part of me that was loving, that was caring about myself, that could really cut through any of my stuff, because hey, I really am committed in my life to work through everything. Like he spoke to a part of me that valued the things he was saying. I want to have this strong ego. I don't want to be attached. I want to be able to handle everything. I want to have my heart open with all of that. And still I said no. So there is and there's other no's, as you know, that are important to say. And there's also a yes in fierceness. Yes, I will bring myself forth. Yes, I will commit to this. Yes, I will do this. Yes, I will. Yes, this is difficult. Yes, I'm scared to death. And I commit to doing this. There's that fierceness that's like that's able to cut through and bring forward and bring things forward into the world. So it's to me, fierceness is a lot about standing for something, standing for yourself, being able to bring things into the world, being able to say yes, being able to say no. One of the ways you could think of that fierceness is important is I was in Maui, and I was actually going to attend a wedding of someone who was Stephen's old partner from years ago, also a friend of mine. And I went to an outdoor bar in Maui, and people were so loving. They were so open. They were so, I don't know, they were so tender and heartful. And my mirror neurons are very good. And I started to just open my heart in the same way that everybody's heart was open. And I realized when my heart was that open, that I had no need to do anything else. Like I was so filled and fulfilled and happy with life just as it was. I had no desire to do anything else. And I said to one of the women, I said, you know, feeling this, feeling so whole and complete, how do you get anything done here? Because I didn't have any desire to do anything. And she looked at me, she thought about it deeply, and she said, we don't. So there's something about going from heartfulness and tenderness and openness to fierceness, to doing, to bringing that into the world. You know, that's really obviously important. So there's one other thing I wanted to say about that. Anyway, so fierceness. So anybody have anything you want to say about fierceness? Any examples about fierceness? Any questions, experiences? Do you have permission to be fierce? And the more heartful you are, I remember by the way, and it really is important with all of these things to have that, you know, coach state first, and then the tenderness, coach state first, and then the fierceness. Mm-hmm. I remember when Stephen was first talking about this, and I always like, even if I'm assisting, to work in the triads or dyads and do the exercises. And we would be doing things about fierceness and tenderness and playfulness, and Stephen would walk around and go, like, be more fierce, be more fierce. And I in my mind, I was like, I am fierce. You know, you're not seeing that I'm fierce. And it was like so unembodied and so not open and in coach state, you know. I was like, I am fierce. How dare you not think I'm fierce, you know. So it really is about learning how to have that fierceness. That, you know, I'm very into the word luxury lately. I feel like there's a luxury in breathing. I feel like there's if you allow the feeling to be all along the center of yourself and open, there's a luxury in the feeling of tenderness. There's a luxury in the feeling of fierceness. There's a beauty. There's an art. There's a power that's a power to create and to be that is so powerful. So anybody have anything they would like to input about fierceness?
I think for me, I've had like a interesting relationship with fierceness over the years. So you can't really see me, like all of me, but I'm like a very small person. I'm like 5 feet tall, like small person. When I was young though, I was like killer fierce. Like I frighten people, like, because I really, I would physically fight. So if you come at me, I will make sure you're really sorry you did that. And so then when I had my kids, I was like, okay, I can't be like this. You know, I really have to kind of find a different way. And then I think I went really far in the opposite direction, where it's like, okay, I'm all tenderness, you know, and sort of playfulness in my interactions with them. And I really, I mean, they will say, like, I never raised my voice to them, and that's true. And so I think by the time they got to be teenagers, because they're kind of in their mid-20s now, I had to find it, like, that coach, like, how do I kind of hold me, like a connection to me, and still be able to really firmly intervene with someone, you know, because like they're teenage, they run over you, you know, so like I'm like, okay, how do I kind of find this middle ground place? And I feel like it's been an interest, and I think I've got more of that now, where I can assert myself and I can be firm and I can say the yeses and the nos in ways that really work for me. But it's been an interesting journey, and I don't know if that makes sense for anybody else, but I really had to kind of like find my way on the continuum to not go too far one way or the other.
I get it. I certainly have had the strategy in my life of, you know, what I call throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You know, like I've made decisions and I've given up too much in the decision. The other thing is that you may notice now that you can begin to have a different relationship with fierceness than you did. You know, you might not be asking for the same exact relationship with fierceness that you had when you were saying, like, don't fuck with me or don't mess with me, which sounds like you did. You know, there might be a little more coach state in your fierceness now that you're able to access, and that may change how you feel about how you relate to the fierceness. So
I think that's true. I think that's a big part of what has happened for me in more recent years. And one more thing I just wanted to say, I had like when I did some work with Steve, like that center work that he does in the supervision groups. So I had this really intense, probably kind of more tender experience in that circle. And then I remember him, I don't remember that much about verbally what happened, but I remember him saying to me, like, okay, and now you want to find this like fierce part of you. And he was like encouraging me to like growl, you know, like really, and I was like, I kept laughing. And he's like, you know, don't do that. Like, don't, you know, and I think he was trying to really help me connect there, but I'm like, I can't go from feeling so uplifted and like this weight is just gone from me to fierce. Like I just, and he got it. He's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense in that moment. But that was the other thing I thought was really interesting is I couldn't go from like, oh, this huge, like wonderful release and tenderness and all that stuff to try to find this, like, I apparently I went to playfulness because I was just giggling. I couldn't stop giggling every time he tried to have me growl. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I get it because you know, because baby was put in the corner, you know, for anybody who knows that reference. You know, there's a lot of people who can't be, they have rules about being tender. They have rules about being fierce. They have rules about being playful. Those are serious, you know, and part of it is just unpacking, you know, like all the things that have stopped us, again, part of what we will do if I could ever stop talking, we do have to get to playfulness, and then I want to make sure to do a little bit of the inner work. That we need to find all the things we put up to stop us from, and we need to be tender, fierce, and playful with those parts that have decided that it's not safe to be tender, fierce, and or playful. So that's what we're doing. That's exactly, it's beautiful that you're bringing it up because there's a reason why you decided, you know, there's a reason why you decided it wasn't okay to be fierce. and that there wasn't allowed to have an interplay between the other. So we want to welcome that, honor that, and really say from, you know, I want to say from my heart that I know that that makes sense somehow, right? That that was something at some point you felt like was a good solution for what was going on in your life. And then now we want to see if we can, with sweetness, fierceness, and playfulness, let that part know maybe it's okay to learn how to be safe in a completely, with some new strategies. Never taking away that old strategy. You'll always be able to separate, compartmentalize whatever you have come up with. But now let's add more to that. So
I wondered too, Petra, if there wasn't if there was some connection between fierceness and your decision as to how you were going to be tender with your kids. Because I really associate, when I really think of myself as fierce in a very grounded way, it feels like determination. It feels like I decided something, and come hell or high water, that's what I'm going to do, even if it's really difficult for me.
And thank you for that, Katie. Yeah, that resonates. I don't know if I've looked at it that way, and it does. That actually touches me a lot. So thank you for that.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Katie. Beautiful. So that brings us to playfulness, which is, I think playfulness is one of the, where like tenderness is like a holding, it's a touching, it's a opening, and fierceness is a, you know, stronger, moving forward, standing for yourself. It's kind of in Gabriel Roth's work, it's more like the masculine. It's more the what does she call it? I'm just forgetting. Staccato. Who said that? Oh yeah, thank you. The staccato. The playfulness is the ability to move, to dance, to go from one thing. Playfulness is very fluid. It doesn't have the same rules. And for me, playfulness is related, so related to creativity, because you need to, in creativity, you need to take components. In some ways, you know, Maharishi, who was one of my teachers, would say there's nothing new under the sun, but creation is that you take all the things that already exist in you, you allow yourself to playfully put them together in a new way. And so there's a movement and a fluidity with playfulness. So, and I was looking at how do you access playfulness. And for me, I remembered times when I was playful. So I can remember, for example, I'm just saying this to see if I can help you remember any things inside of you that are playful. One time I was at trance camp, and I have danced salsa, and I love dancing salsa, and I love the music. And I was in a jacuzzi with a guy from the group, and he started dancing salsa with me in the jacuzzi. And for some reason, the juxtaposition of all those things was like so delightful. It was in the sun, it was in hot water, it was dancing in the jacuzzi, and it was doing salsa. And I was like shrilling and giggling with delight, like in the most innocent way possible, right? So for me, when I think of playfulness, joyfulness, fun, giggles, that's one of the things that comes up for me. Does anybody have anything that they would like to describe as playful? What what as an experience in your life or something that brings up that kind of idea of playfulness? So I'll just talk and you can bring up anything as we go along. So, you know, playfulness allows us to not take things so seriously, playfulness is, you can't have playfulness and neuromuscular lock at the same time. So playfulness allows us to get around and move. Yes, Nigel.
I find that I use playfulness to change state a lot. So in exactly that way, you say it's if the mood is serious, or if there's something that needs just to break the state and introduce a new way. I used it intentionally in a meeting last week where very seriously I needed to bring to people's attention the fact that we were meeting and we weren't social distancing. And if this group of people didn't social distance and one person fell ill with the virus, the business couldn't run. So I sort of just sat there and thought, well, how am I going to do this? And I thought about, in this country, the royal family never travels together. Because if something was to happen to them when they're traveling, the royal family wouldn't exist anymore. So they have to travel separately. So I use that as a hook and as a joke to break the seriousness and to introduce the whole episode or the seriousness of it in such a way that it allowed a new way of thinking about it.
That's great.
So, yeah, so in the moment, playfulness, I think, for me, certainly, is often about introducing a changed state first.
Okay. Well, certainly playfulness helps us literally move away, like have another vision, another experience of what's happening. In order to kind of be funny, you have to like have a meta perspective, literally, in order to make a joke about anything that is. And it does introduce more fluidity and some relaxation and some levity in the situation. So, because often when we all become too serious, we lose that, we become more rigid and we lose that fluidity. So the playfulness is so important for us to just enjoy life, to be present. You know, it is interesting because if you look at tenderness, fierceness, and playfulness, they're all different ways. If you really let yourself get into it, Zarko, that you can really fully be present. Because to really be fierce, you need to be present. To really be tender, you need to be present. To really be playful, you need to be present. So we are, Zarko, just a few minutes away from actually going into having the experience of it, because we've talked so much. And hopefully this has tilled the soil for us to then be able to go inside and just touch on and develop more fully all these things inside of us. So do you guys need a quick break before we go do a transition?
Yeah.
Yes.
I found that I don't know if that fits in it, but a good way to break the situation when they are tense is to kind of burst into song and start to sing something. And a lot of people immediately kind of, it changes totally the atmosphere once you start to sing. And I found that, you know, in my life, 2 or 3 or 4 times that I really felt, I did it, was when nobody was anymore talking and everybody was tense. And it came to my mind, let me sing. And I do an appropriate song for every time it came to me, it was kind of from inspired and so on. I don't know if that is playfulness or no, but it's kind of, it did feel like, okay.
It has the ability, it is, for me, I find it playful. It can also be tender, can also be fierce. And it could also be a mixture of all those things, but it's wonderful and definitely a break of pattern, you know, a pattern interrupter, which is really fabulous. So thank you for sharing that, Zarko. That's not something that came to my mind, and I love it. Great. Okay, so should we have a 3-minute bathroom break and then come back and be ready to go inside? And
sure.
Is 3 minutes enough? Do you need longer?
Yeah.
Does anybody need longer? Okay. 12:29 my time. Let's be back here.
Beverlee.
Yes.
I have to go because my family is, we have like 10:30 p.m. and our son is waiting for kind of evening conversation. But
oh, nice.
I will left a recording going on.
Okay, good.
And
great.
then when we finish, I will put it on the YouTube tomorrow probably.
Great.
It was a really big pleasure to be on your class, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, sweetie. Thank you so much for all your help and for your heartfulness. I really appreciate it. Thank
Hugs,
you.
From me and from Richard.
Great. And back at ya. So I'm gonna get some water and have a frog in my throat. Okay, so we're back. All right, everybody. So I'm going to ask you to, eyes open, eyes closed, to begin to call upon yourself to do what you best do. Oh, and maybe you should turn off your microphones while we're doing this. To just let yourself be aware of whatever it is that you have now developed to go more into a coach state, allowing yourself to to be connected all the way up and down the center of your body. I like to think about being connected to the center of the universe, all the way through my body, all the way into the earth, to the center of the earth. Breathing with that and allowing myself to open. So finding that for yourself, if that works for you, opening into the field, into what information is available to you from inside, from outside, that's important and necessary for you today. Letting yourself drop down deeply into yourself. Because experiencing these qualities of tenderness, fierceness, playfulness are important to experience in this opened, deepened, connected, centered state. So I'm asking you to use your tenderness and fierceness and playfulness as you begin to explore those three qualities. Be tender with yourself as you explore. Be committed and fierce with yourself as you cut through the brush with your machete to your truth, to what you care about standing for or doing. And being playful and sweet and moving and having a bit of a giggle, maybe not taking yourself or this process too seriously, just being playful and curious and with beginner's mind, with an open, who knows what can happen, who knows what's possible. Letting yourself now begin to explore what tenderness means to you, in allowing it to be explored in the environment of openness, of coach state, of connection, of depth. What does it mean for you to open your heart? You can imagine a part of you or someone or situation in which you want to learn how to open more fully. What does it take to feel safe, to begin to lower the walls, to begin to explore past any numbness, Is there a second skin that you would like to picture around you to help you more fully feel comfortable and open to experience the tenderness, the openness of your heart? Beginning to be aware of what does help you to remember that tenderness. Is it a picture of animals of different species playing together? Is it a memory of something sweet that happened to you? Letting yourself remember your heart and your tenderness before you thought you needed to put up any walls or thought you needed to numb out. Letting yourself bring that experience forward into this time. Being aware of that feeling, that heart chakra opening like a lens. Dropping your muscular tension that has held you a little tightly in the past around that heart area. Letting yourself bring tenderness to your heart. Letting yourself bring fierce protection to your heart. You can be tender and you can be the warrior of your heart at the same time. Letting yourself bring some playfulness. And open. And open. Remember that time your heart open. Allowing yourself to know what does help you open more. Is it a song? Is it a touch? Is it a ironing of your forehead? Is it the seeing of your child? Is it when you actually see through to somebody and you see their beauty? Is it when you hear a hummingbird or see a hummingbird or hear a bird sing? Be aware of any part of you that you need to ask help from for you to open your heart. Allowing yourself to know that you can have tenderness. You can begin to find ways to hear your song. What is your song? What do you love? What do you allow to touch your heart, to touch you so deeply that your heart opens even more, that bridge we talked about before. What situations would it be useful for you to bring this tenderness into? For yourself, in your relationship with yourself, others. When has your tenderness also had fierceness to it? Fierce love, a caring, an action built on heartfulness and tenderness. When has your tenderness felt playful? Like deciding to sing for somebody. Like looking at a thumb and knowing it could mean that it's an iron. Like being with your children and using your tenderness to play with them. To help them joke about something. Tenderness, caring about how people respond at work, with clients. And letting yourself explore what you need in order to more fully, because sometimes it's just nice to be tender with yourself and know that you need something else to be able to more fully, 100% go into tenderness. You don't need to 100% go into tenderness now. You could be curious, what more do I need? What else do I need in order to allow myself this particular birthright? Give yourself some of that right now. Appreciating your tenderness. Let yourself begin to be more in touch with that fierceness inside. Still, centered, open, knowing that you are open to the field, you are the field, you relate and interact in the field, that you are centered, you are yourself, you are on the planet, you have breath, you have tenderness, fierceness, and playfulness. Now you can bring in that fierceness, remembering any time in your life you had that fierceness. Could be when you were a baby and you had the fierceness to keep getting up and trying to walk. When you would keep falling down and then you would get up, that fierceness of getting up to take the next step. Some playfulness, I'm sure, in there. The fierceness of persisting That's part of fierceness, is persisting, committing, standing for yourself, standing for someone else, standing for something. Bringing something into the world. All of you have used fierceness to go past all the adversities you've experienced in your life to be here right now. Let yourself be aware of some of the most important times for you that you did that, how it felt. Times you were scared, times you felt hopeless, and yet you picked yourself up and continued forward. What strength it takes to do that. Maybe you had a desire and it felt great and you picked yourself up to be fierce and bring that positivity into the world. The fierceness of deciding to be tender for your children, as was illuminated in this session. The fierceness of knowing to bring playfulness into a work situation where things become too serious. The fierceness of standing for ideals. One of you wearing a t-shirt saying no sexism, no racism. Standing for what you believe. Standing for being able to feel this tenderness, fierceness, and playfulness 100%, standing for that. What is it like to make that particular commitment? The fierceness doesn't mean that you already have what you want. It means that you commit to go forward. You make a vow to go forward and do what you can to make it so. And what is it that you would like to commit to now? And where in your body can you feel that commitment? Where in your body do you feel that fierceness, and what does it feel like as you persist and move forward, as you stand for something? Let yourself know and be aware of the things that tell you it's not okay to be fierce. Know that that's there to protect you in some way, to keep you safe, to somehow it makes sense that it's not okay to be fierce. So honor that. Welcome that. And know on a deep level, what else, what do I need to do? What do I need in order to fully allow myself to feel this and express this? Allowing yourself to use all the resources available, including the tenderness and the playfulness. What else do you need in order to fully let yourself experience that power, that fierceness? Letting yourself now dip into playfulness. So we'll fiercely dip into playfulness right now. Just remembering a time of relaxation, of joy, play, creativity. Let yourself know that maybe you want to go all the way to when you were a kid, time where you did play easily, even if it was, some people just play easily for like a moment in their life. Some were given the opportunity to play more. Just notice any experience in your past that you can begin to bring forward now. That helps remind you of what it's like to, in that relaxed coach state. What's fun? What's creative for me? Where can I relax that any rigidity and begin to be fluid, moving, playing, joking? What was the last joke you heard? Something on TV that made you giggle or laugh, or be able to be creative. If you're just coming on to the class, welcome. Please mute your microphone if you can. So being aware of what playfulness you like. Is it a playfulness of words? Is it a playfulness of singing, of painting, of being silly, playing pranks, making fun of yourself, dancing? One of the things that I'm finding now is it's just so great to be able to listen to comics that have a sense of humor about some of the things that are going on right now, because it's just so brings some levity. I think one of the things that helps bring playfulness are those things of those childhood nursery rhymes, childhood songs. Ollie, ollie, oxen free. I love seeing a child just jumping up and down a whole bunch of times in the middle of the room for no reason. Just begin to learn to just do things in the moment and just have a giggle, finding the giggle. And is it okay for you to be playful? Letting yourself find out what you may need in order to give yourself permission to be playful. Finding how it's safe to be a little silly, to be a little playful, to be a little like not knowing. This is so much the land of letting yourself not know. So opening to not knowing, and then with a desire, how would you like to play in the field of not knowing? And if you're just joining us, welcome. Could you please put your speaker on mute? Please put your speaker on mute. So just knowing that we are now just exploring playfulness. So letting yourself, for those that are just joining or coming close to the end, but you can begin to now also close your eyes and just explore what playfulness is for you. What moving from one thing to another with some levity and light and newness and not knowing is for you. Letting yourself be aware of how you can begin to mix all of those three of tenderness, fierceness, playfulness. What does it mean to have them all mixed, to all be some kind of a recipe, a new recipe that you make, a new song that you sing? In playfulness, there's fierce play, there's tender play, there's just playful play. In fierceness, there's tender fierceness, fierce, just fierceness. There's playful fierceness. There's tenderness. There's playful tenderness. There's fierce tenderness. Letting yourself just touch a little more into all of those spaces, just like a toe touching into a pool, letting yourself develop any of those aspects that can more fully be developed. And noticing what are some areas that you can bring this into your life that they would be useful. A mixture, a dance of tenderness, fierceness, playfulness. mixing it, finding different ways inside yourself to be tender, mixed with fierceness, mixed with playfulness. Letting yourself know that this is just somewhere in the middle of your development. So being sweet to yourself about dipping in and developing any of these qualities more deeply. Inside yourself, making a vow of how you would like to use these three qualities. What's your vow to yourself about developing them, using them, experiencing them, cultivating them? And as you come out, just let yourself come back into this Zoom room easily, comfortably, bringing anything that you've experienced back with you into the world. And as you come back, Melissa, Cindy, someone else just joined too. We've been, I don't know how the talk happened, but we've been talking together for 2 hours before you joined us. So
I just got the email and just jumped on.
Oh, good. I'm glad. You're welcome, and there will be a recording. So
good. Thank you.
I'm happy for you to be able to be part of this.
Thank you.
So anybody have any feedback? So we are at 1:02, and I did say it goes to 1, but I'm very happy to stay longer to discuss anything that came up, anything more that we could talk about that's useful. So please bring whatever you experienced or whatever was easy, difficult, serious, fun.
I had a very beautiful image coming up of a set of cards, and it was I only saw the cards that had the heart stamped on it, and there was I don't even know what you call them all in English, doesn't really matter. This sense of it's all in the game, they're all always there. They might be shuffled, you might throw them up in the air. They're all still in the set, and they all have the heart on it. And I like that. I like that.
Yeah, you know, part of this work that's wonderful is that when, you know, it's good practice when people are sharing is to really take in what people say, like really take it into your body. And I'm taking that and will take that. I love that image and that feeling of that image that I have. Thank you. It's all there, and it's all, we can reshuffle them, we can throw them up in the air. Love that. Thank you.
I'll just share a memory came up for me of when I had a community garden plot, and I was there with my husband who was doing some work, and we were finishing up, and I saw that there were these rabbits, these baby rabbits actually chewing up my garden. And I was really upset about it, and I thought, I've got to do something here. So I started chasing them off, and I started, and the grass outside the community garden was very long. And this little baby rabbit that I'm chasing, I'm acting like I'm a hawk, like keep running. And it would run and it would stop. And then I would have to like be more fierce and be like, no, keep going.
Wow.
And the whole time, I've got to say, I started feeling really, really guilty, like really bad about myself. Like, here I am frightening this baby rabbit. And so I thought I'd chase the rabbit off. And then I came back, I was talking to my husband. We're standing there by the post, by the garden. And then we looked down, and right at my feet is the baby rabbit.
Oh.
And it kind of hopped onto my husband's boot. And it was just looking up at us like with these sweet, tender eyes. And we just started laughing. I mean, it's just so funny and so sweet. It was like, you can't close your heart when you've got this teeny little rabbit just looking up at you like that. And so like, this just came back to me while you were leading us through this. And I thought it sort of brings together everything for me in a new way. Because I used to remember that and feel bad, and now I remember it and I think it was all those things. It was playful and it was tender, and I was fierce, and that was okay. And the baby rabbit the bunny was just always tender. So thought I'd share that.
I love that. Thank you. That's really beautiful. Yeah, you know, nature has a lot of fierceness in it, you know, and we think that we're somehow separate from that. And, you know, animals chase other animals from being near their food. It's okay to do that. So we do have all these rules of how we're supposed to be. But thank you for sharing. I did recognize all the elements in there. Really, really great. Thank you. My heart opened when you talked about the little rabbit too.
It was adorable.
Anyone else? Anything other than just what we experienced that you'd like to ask about, that you'd like to talk about, anything that, you know, you still might want to work with, or anything you've learned or anything like that?
I just want to thank you, like all of you, but Beverlee especially, for leading this. Like, I really feel like there's some things I'm looking at or experiencing kind of differently in relation to these three, whatever we call them, energies, whatever. One reflection on, and then I actually have to go because I have to make dinner for my husband. He's got a broken foot and I can hear him trying to rummage. So I'm gonna go make him some food. But I wanted to say something I noticed in the practice was the experience of playfulness when I was kind of connecting to that in my body. It was way lower down. It was much more of a belly thing than I think I always envisioned. Like, I always thought of it more of an up thing. So that was kind of really interesting. But there was just a lot of stuff that I'll be sitting with and working with that was really helpful. So
thank you, Petra. You know, thank you for mentioning that. It's one of the things I didn't mention, but there is, you know, there is that thing of all that with all of these energies, it's about feeling it all in the body. And then when you know, when you have the tenderness, and it's kind of like the one that just wants to please everybody or be nice, or you have the fierceness that's like, well, I don't want to wear a mask, or if you have the playfulness that's kind of just like silly, it doesn't really work that well. It's the embodied, bringing the energies through the whole body that I think really make a difference, that I'm always working with. You know, because whenever there's the neuromuscular lock, it does bring it up. So thank you, Petra. I appreciate you being part of this. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm just going to ask again if there's anything else. If not, we can sign off. But I have completely enjoyed being with all of you and exploring this. I was exploring just presenting this because I haven't before. So that for me was a kind of new endeavor that I enjoyed myself. I hope it was useful for you. And I still, so we can sign off, and I still am open for other questions or statements.
Well, Beverlee, I for myself just wanted to thank you. One of the things that I thought was so great about meeting was I just found a lot of, you were so playful and.
Can you hold on? I'm going to be really weird. There's someone at my door. Hold on, because I'm listening. I want to get present. Okay. Oh, you have it? Okay, good. Sorry. Sorry, I also run an Airbnb, and so anyway, there's a delivery for the people that are in the Airbnb. So sorry. So sorry, sweetheart. You were saying something really nice, and did you start? I could not hear it. I was distracted. Thank you.
Well, I just loved your approach, and I just appreciate you and the playfulness you brought. I mean, you made me laugh several times over. I just so appreciated your stories. They were easy to relate to, and my reactions were like your reactions to a lot of the situations you were describing. So that was just very enjoyable. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Katie. Wonderful to have you, and wonderful to meet you. I haven't really met you yet. So yeah. Thank you.
I'd like to say thank you to Beverlee. It's really lovely to see you and work with you, and to everybody here. Really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Beverlee.
Thank you. Nice to have some. I've heard you speak, Zarko, but I haven't had any contact with you. It's nice. And for those of you I have had contact with, it's so nice to see you again and be with you. So
Nice
thank
to
you
see.
very, very much.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Zarko.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
That was brilliant.
Thank you. Bye.